AI is absolutely exploding. I mean, it is everywhere, and it's promising to change, well, pretty much everything. But here's the thing. For all this incredible growth, we are seeing some really public and honestly, sometimes spectacular failures. So what's the difference? What separates a successful AI project from one that just becomes a viral meme or, way worse, actually causes real harm? All right, let's get into it.
You know, when AI goes wrong, it's not all the same. It exists on this massive spectrum. On one end, you've got these glitches that are just, well, they're just plain funny. But on the other end, you've got errors with truly life and death consequences.
You probably saw this one all over social media, right? Back in 2024, McDonald's had to pull the plug on its big AI drive-through test. Why? Because it was apparently adding bacon to people's ice cream and cooking up all sorts of other wild orders that just blew up online. It's a perfect example of a low-stakes but super visible AI fail.
Okay, but this is where the contrast really matters. On one side, you have the McDonald's AI. It's funny, nobody got hurt. But on the other, you have something way more serious. IBM's Watson for oncology. When it was used in places like India and Thailand, it started giving out some really inappropriate cancer treatment advice. Turns out, it was trained almost entirely on data from Western patients. I mean, the stakes there just couldn't be any higher.
So you've got a burger botching AI and a life-saving AI giving flawed advice. They seem like they're worlds apart, right? But weirdly enough, they often share the exact same root problem. So why do these projects, with so much money and potential behind them, fall apart?
So often, the real issue is what you'd call a lack of strategic alignment. This is what happens when a company gets so hyped up about the technology itself, the shiny new AI, that they totally forget to ask the most basic questions. What problem are we actually trying to solve here? And how are we going to know if we've succeeded? They get obsessed with the tech, and they lose sight of the value it's supposed to create.
Look, at the end of the day, these failures aren't just one-off bugs or some simple coding mistake. A drive-through AI messing up your lunch and a medical AI giving bad advice, they're both symptoms of the exact same underlying disease, a total lack of a solid system to manage the AI from the drawing board all the way to the real world.
But what if there was a blueprint for doing this the right way? A kind of playbook put together by experts from all over the world? Well, it turns out there is. In December 2023, the world got one. We need to talk about a new international standard called ISO/ISO 42001.
Now I know that name sounds super technical, right? But don't let it scare you off. Just think of this standard as the world's first official playbook for building and managing AI in a responsible way. It's not about killing innovation, it's about putting up the guardrails to make sure that innovation actually works.
Now, the beating heart of this whole playbook is this idea of an AI management system. So what is that? Well, to put it simply, it's a framework. It's the whole structure a company puts in place, all the policies, the goals, the step-by-step processes to make sure their AI projects actually do what they're supposed to do.
So how does a management system like this actually stop the kind of disasters we saw earlier? Let's crack open the playbook and see how all the pieces fit together.
The whole system runs on this simple, repeating cycle. First, you plan. You figure out the risks and you set clear goals. Then, you operate. You actually build and launch your AI using smart, defined processes. Next, and this is so important, you evaluate. You watch it. You monitor its performance. And finally, you improve. You find what's broken and you fix it. It's a loop that never stops.
Okay, so let's make this real. Let's go back to that IBM Watson Oncology AI. The problem was huge. It was giving bad recommendations because its training data was biased and way too Western-centric. A massive, high-stakes problem.
So how would this playbook have helped? Well, take a look at these specific controls right from the standard. It basically forces an organization to sit down and formally assess the potential impacts of their AI on individuals, on groups, and on society as a whole. If that had been a mandatory step from day one, you can bet the risk of using limited data for a global tool would have been flagged immediately.
And this all boils down to one huge idea: proactive risk management. The standard makes a formal risk assessment process non-negotiable. The goal is to stop worrying about what could go wrong after it goes wrong, and instead to identify, analyze, and plan for those risks before they ever get a chance to happen.
And man, is it comprehensive. It's not just about risk. It says leadership, the top brass, has to be involved and set a clear AI policy.
It says you have to provide the right resources, good data, the right tools, and people who know what they're doing. You need clear, defined processes for the entire AI lifecycle. And you have to figure out who's responsible for what, especially when you're working with outside vendors.
So what's the big takeaway here? It means we need this fundamental shift in how we think about building AI. It's all about moving away from a code-first approach to a system-first approach. You know, the standard itself puts it perfectly. This isn't just some IT checklist you have to tick off. Adopting an AI management system, that is a top-level strategic decision. It's about deciding as a whole organization that you're going to build AI the right way.
So when you really boil it all down, it's this. Successful AI isn't just about writing some brilliant code, it's about building a robust, thoughtful management system that surrounds that code, that guides it, checks it, and makes sure it's delivering real, positive value without causing a mess. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. Whether you're building this stuff yourself or just using it. Are you just focused on building DAI? Or are you building the entire system that's needed to manage it for long-term success? Because that answer, that could make all the difference in the world.